Number 41. What is the zero of this equation? All right. Keep in mind, this is another fancy way of saying y. R of x is the same thing as saying y. So this really means y is equal to 8/3 x minus 16. They want to know what is the zero. Basically, this is a vocabulary question. If you know what a zero means, this is really easy. Okay, if I have a graph that looks something like this, just made up graph. Okay, here's the x-axis, here's the y-axis. A zero is where it crosses the x-axis. This is called a zero. All right, and the reason for that is at some x value, the y value will equal 0. So this x value here is referred to as a 0 because if I plug it into the equation, the y value will come out as being 0. That's what the meaning of a 0 is. All I literally have to do is graph this equation in a calculator and figure out where it crosses the x-axis. What x value is that? What is that x value? Okay, that's the whole question. And if you understand that, this is the easiest question ever. So what's the equation? It's 8/3 x minus 16. So let's take a look at that graph. Let's make a new document. Don't save. Add a graph. To make a fraction, control divide. 8/3 x put the x on the outside minus 16. Okay, now we got to figure out where it crosses the x-axis. I can go to menu, trace, graph trace, and I could trace this guy down. I'm sorry, trace it to where it crosses the x-axis right here. Once I hover over the x-axis, you notice that it'll call it what? It'll call it a 0. And I keep moving this on you. Once I hover over the x-axis, you can see that it calls it a 0. What is this x value right here then? The answer is 6. That's the answer to the question. It's really like that. So I come over here and say, voila, 6, done. Come down to number 42. This is a griddable question. Whenever you see this, fill in the bubbles. All right, that's where everybody gets all scared, right? Can't guess on a question like this. But let's see if we can work this out. The cost of parking in the garage at the airport is $16 per day. A separate parking facility outside the airport charges 25% less per day to park. What would be the savings in dollars and cents of parking 6 days in a facility outside the airport instead of the airport garage? Okay, so they want to park for 6 days. And what is the cost for the airport garage? It's $16 per day. So let's do the airport garage, and we'll do the outside garage, outside the airport. Let's just take this into consideration. So if I'm parking for 6 days, common sense, and I'm getting charged $16 per day, it'll be 16 times 6. This is the cost of staying at that airport, the airport parking lot. All right. So that's 6 times 10, which is 60, plus 6 times 6, which is 36. So 60 plus 36 is $96. That's how much this is going to cost you. You can do this in a calculator, of course. That's what I recommend you do. Outside the garage, you're getting charged 25% less than what? Your $16 per day. So what that really means is that they're going to take your $16 per day and take away 25%, which means you're going to have to take 0.25. You're subtracting 0.25 times 16 from this cost. So this is now the cost of what? Per day of the outside garage. And then you have to multiply it by how many days? 6 days. That is actually what they're telling you. So that's the kind of the trick here. You have to know. It's the same thing if you're getting 25% off a clothing item at the mall. You have to subtract 25% of the price from the actual price. This is very common sense logic right here. So let's figure out how much this costs. Let's do this in a calculator. So I'm going to create a new document. Add a calculator. This will be, it'll be 16 minus 0.25 times 16. So this is the cost per day for the parking lot. All right, so that's going to be $12 per day. How many days are you keeping it? We're going to keep it 6 days. So this will cost me $72. The airport parking lot costs $96. So what is 96 minus 72? What's the savings that I get? I saved $24. All right, that's the answer to the question. Actually, it's 24. One thing you should also notice, though, is what is 25% of the cost of the airport parking lot? $24 also. You could have just taken 25% of the cost of the airport. It would have been the same. So it'd be 24, 24. So this is 72. This is 96. So we say 96 minus 72 is your savings, which is $24. Record your answer. Okay, so the answer is 24. Bubble that in. Not that difficult if you know what you're doing. Two functions are given below. They sure are. Now, here's the scary part. When you see two equations, okay, this is actually called a system. And what is instinctive for students to do is to try to solve this in the calculator solving a system with menu 3-2. Please do not do that, okay? This is not that one of those questions, all right? What they're doing is they're taking a graph, this first graph, and they're going to do something to it, and it makes a second graph, and they want to know how does this graph, this first graph P, compare to the graph of Q. They just want to know how do the graphs look compared to each other. So you really should graph both of these equations, all right? But what I need to figure out first is, in this form, y equals mx plus b, this is the slope of the graph. It's number in front of x. So the slope here is 5/8 and the slope here is 8/5. This is called the y-intercept, this number on the end. This is going to determine where it crosses the y-axis, okay? As you can see, the y-intercepts are the same. So these two graphs actually cross the y-axis in the exact same spot. If I had a y-axis right here, they'd both cross at -3/11, so it's going to be right about here. If this is -1, it's going to cross right about here for both graphs, okay? But one of them is going to go up 5 and over 8 from there. So if I go up 5 and over 8, it's going to look something like this. I'm going to have a graph that looks something like this. If I, on this other one, I'm going to go up 8 and over 5, so I'm going to go up higher and then go over less, so it's actually going to be steeper. All right, so this graph right here, we say is steeper. All right, and this one is less steep here. Okay, because I'm going up 8 and over 5, that's steeper than going up 5 and over 8. All right, so let's take a look. The graph of P has a different y-intercept. That's garbage. Here's the y-intercept, here's the y-intercept. They're the same. So they don't have a different y-intercept. That's not true. The graph of P is less steep, all right? The graph of P is, in fact, what? Less steep. I just said that, than the graph of Q. That is true, all right? I declare that. The graph of P is steeper. No, it's less steep. That's not true. The graph of P is parallel. For two graphs to be parallel, two lines, they have to have the exact same slope. As you can see, these two slopes are what? Not the same. They're different. So this answer is also wrong. Your answer for this one is common sense. It's B. Number 44. Moving swiftly on. The graph models A. The area in square feet of a rectangular porch with the length that is 0.56 W less than 28 feet given it a width of W feet. It's a lot of stuff going on there. Based on the graph, what is the width in feet of a porch with the greatest area? They give you the area right here, and they give you the width right here. So if I want to find the greatest area, where is the graph the highest? It has the greatest area. The highest point is here. The greatest area, this greatest area here is 350. So what's the width to go with that? We just trace it down to the width right here, and what does this give me? 25. This answer is 25. That is really easy. That question should take just a few seconds, okay? Number 45. The owner of a clothing store buys t-shirts for $C each and sells them for P each. Last month she bought 600 t-shirts and sold 500 of them and made a profit of $2,800. This month she bought 400 t-shirts and sold them all and made a profit of $2,400. Which system of equations can be used to determine the values of C and P? Alright, so they make you create a system. This is not that easy. Really, it's not. But let's take a look at this. This is obviously the cost of a shirt that they paid for it, and this is selling price. So this is the selling price, and this is the price, cost price. So if an owner of a clothing store buys a shirt, he pays this much for it, and then he sells the shirt for P, which means P should be what? Should be bigger than the cost, so you can make a profit, right? So let's take a look at this. He's going to say, here we go. Last month they bought 600 t-shirts. So if you're buying 600 shirts, you're going to pay the cost price for them, which is what? C. And then you're going to do what? You're going to sell 500 of them. If you're selling 500 of them, you're going to sell them at what? At 500. Here's the thing though, how do you get a profit margin? How do you use a business rate its profit? Its profit is what? Is revenue, how much is getting from the sale of the shirts minus the what? The cost. The cost here is 600 shirts at price C, but I have to subtract this cost from what? The revenue. The revenue is what? 500 shirts that I'm selling at P dollars each. That's the sell price of the shirts. So this is an equation, and if I buy 500 and I sell 600, this is what I'm making. This is the profit. It's 2,800. We're going to do this again though for another equation. 400 shirts sold, 400, all of them, they were bought 400 shirts and sold all of them. So we bought 400 at price and we sold 400. Sorry, we sold 400 at price and we bought them at cost, and that's going to equal 2,400 here. So this is actually your system. And which answer looks like that? It looks a lot like answer A. That's it. This is no calculator. This is basically, can you do this or can't you? And that's really not the easiest question, but do your best. Which representation does not show y is a function of x? Alrighty, let's talk about what a function is really fast. We're going for the one that is not a function, by the way. But what a function is you have one y value for each x value. So let's do some examples here. If I have a function and a no function. A function, if I had a list of points, let's make up some. Let's make up some points here. There's one y value for each x. So this x value -1 will only have a pairing with one y value 6. This 0 is only paired with one value 4, and this 2 is only paired with one value 3. This would be a function. A non-function would have some repeated x values. All right. So this is what I'm talking about. If I had 0, 3, and then -1, 6. -1 is paired with 4, and it should only be paired with 4. But -1 here is also paired with 6, which means there is more than one y value for this x value -1. Okay, so basically how you tell if something is not a function is you look for repeated x values in your table here. If you don't have a table though and you have a graph, this is what you're looking for. When repeated x values show up this way, if I had a -1, oops, this is a positive one. If I had a -1 right here actually, and it's matched with 4 and 6, so this will be a 4 and this will be a 6. -1 matched with 4 would give you a point right here, and then -1 matched with 6 would give you this one. What you could see here though is these 2 points are really on top of each other. If I draw a vertical line, I'll hit how many points? I'll hit 2 points. I'm not supposed to hit more than 1 point with the vertical line on a graph if it's a function. So this means it's automatically not a function. Alright, so that's a long-winded explanation, but you should know this from class. This is called the vertical line test. So let's take a look at these answers. Do you see repeated x values? No. Are all these x values only paired with one y value? Yes. So this is actually a function. I want the one that is not. Do you see any repeated x values here? The answer is no. This is also a function. Any repeated x values in the table? Nope. This is a function. And here we have a graph. Does this pass a vertical line test for all points? No, because if I draw a vertical line, how many points do I hit? 2. So this is what? Not a function. They want the one that is not a function right here, so the answer, of course, is J. All right, there you go. Number 47. The graph below shows the relationship between the number of gallons of fuel remaining in a truck and the number of hours the truck has been driven. What does the x-intercept of the graph represent? So here is your independent variable. Independent variable. Time driven, and this will be your dependent variable. The y, your fuel. Your fuel depends on how many hours you've been driving, pretty much. All right. So let's take a look at these points here. This point right here is called the y-intercept. All right. So where the graph crosses the y-axis, and they say it's 200. What is the x value down here? The x value here, of course, is 0. So this point right here is 0, 200. Now, what does that point mean? This means something. This means something. What does this x value mean? It means what? It means hours driven. So if you have driven 0 hours, how much fuel do you have in your truck? In your truck here, you have how much fuel in gallons? You have 200 gallons. So what this means is that at 0 hours, you have 200 gallons. They're not asking you about the y-intercept. They're asking about the what? The x-intercept. That's over here where it crosses the x-axis right here. So what is this point? This point right here is 20. And what is the y value at this point? The y value here is what? 0. That's where the y value is. If I trace it back to the y-axis, it's 0. So this means, remember, what does x mean? It means hours driven. So after 20 hours, how much fuel do you have? You have 0 gallons. So this x-intercept means basically after 20 hours you're out of fuel. It tells you when you run out of fuel. So what does this represent? The number of gallons of fuel in the truck before any driving occurred? No, before any driving occurred, that's the what? That's the y-intercept. Before I drove anywhere, I had 200 gallons to start with. This is wrong. The number of hours the truck was driven before running out of fuel, that is true. I was able to drive what? 20 hours, and then I ran out of what? Gas. That's the x-intercept. That's the answer. Okay, this C value, this answer here, the number of gallons of fuel the truck can hold, actually makes no mention of how much fuel the truck can hold. It just says it started off with 200. I actually don't know what the capacity of the truck is. We don't know anything about that. The number of hours required to use 1 gallon of fuel? No. If I actually calculated how many hours I could drive on 1 gallon of fuel, I'd be doing a rate of change. This would be called a slope. They're asking you, of course, about the x-intercept, so this is not true. The answer is B. Number 48. Okay, this one's a little tricky. Which statement is true if they give you this function f of x and this function g of x? What they're going to do is take this x for f and plug in a what? A -2, which means this x value is also what? It's also a -2. And then they're going to take this x value for the function g and they're going to make it -3, which means you have to plug in -3 into what? Into this one. So after I plug in -2 into here and -3 into here, are these equal to each other is the question. All right, and one of them is going to be true. Well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this. I'm going to actually say, what makes this tricky is this is the x value here. So instead of calling this x, I'm going to call it something else. I'm going to call it, let's call it y. That's fine. All right. So I have two functions here. This one right here, which is x minus 3 squared plus 4. And here I have this other one, which I'm going to call y cubed plus 2. And I want to see when these are equal to each other. But what I'm going to do is change the values of x and y. All right? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to first use the values -2 and -3. I'm going to store -2 into x and store -3 into y, and then type this equation in to the calculator, and it's either going to say true or what? Or of course false. Alright, so that's what I'm going to do. Let's get the calculator out. -2. So we have a graph here. We're going to type in -2, store that into x. Okay, I'm going to store -3 into y for the first answer. And then we're going to type in the equation for the equations that they want here. And we only have to do this once because we can just copy it over and over again. So we're just going to type this in. This is the only time we're going to have to type it, the whole thing. X minus 3 squared plus 4 equals y cubed plus 2. All right. So in parentheses, x minus 3 all squared plus 4 equals y cubed plus 2. True or false? They say automatically this is false. Alright, so this answer is wrong. Now we got to change the x and y values to what? To 0 and negative 1, and then just copy again. So 0 will be stored into x, and negative 1 will be stored into y. And then I'll highlight this equation, oops, and just copy it. Hit enter, it'll copy it, hit enter again. This answer is also false, so this one is wrong as well. Now we change our new x value to 8 and 3 and do this again. So 8 will be stored into x, 3 will be stored into y, and then we copy the equation once more and hit enter. This says true. Finally we got an answer, and the answer is that one. It's going to be H. This one is the correct answer. This one will be wrong. Okie doke. Number 49. Which graph represents the inequality negative 2x plus 7y is less than or equal to 112? This is only challenging because of the way they've given you this equation. This is kind of in standard form of a line, and I want slope-intercept form. In other words, I want to get this y by itself in this inequality here. So if I take this equation, negative 2x plus 7y is less than or equal to 112. To get y by itself, I need to get rid of this negative 2x right here. So to get rid of this negative 2x so I can get the 7y by itself, I'm just going to move it to the other side of the equation. And when I do that, it goes from being negative to positive. Okay? It'll change the sign from whatever it was, it'll be the different one. Now this is gone. So now I have 7y is less than or equal to 112 plus 2x. Now to get y by itself, I divide everything by 7. Okay? Keep in mind, if this were a negative number that you're dividing by, this sign right here would have to flip. You would have to change it if this were a negative number. But because it's not, we're not going to. So these 7s are going to cross out, and I have a y. And this will be less than 2x over 7. We can say that. 2/7 x. And then plus 112 over 7. It's positive, right? This is actually what I'm going to graph in my calculator, and it'll tell me what the answer is. Before I go any further, though, it's worth mentioning that because I have a line underneath this inequality, this means this graph is equal to y. When it is equal, this will be a solid line in the graph. Okay, when I have this line underneath it. If there's no line underneath it, it'll be a dashed line. Okay, so this should be a solid line. This answer here doesn't have a solid line, it has a dashed line. This is automatically wrong. Here's a solid line, so this is possible. Here's a solid line, so this one is possible. This one is dashed, so it's automatically wrong. So just by knowing that fact, you can do a 50-50 elimination here. Okay, but let's actually, I'm not big on guessing. Let's actually put this in the calculator and graph it, all right? So it's 2/7 x plus 112 over 7. So what I'm going to do is create a new document, and I'm going to add a graph. And I don't have an inequality here. So what you should see, though, is if I hit delete, it'll get rid of the equal sign and give me this list of options. The one I want is the top one, less than. All right, and this is going to be, I'm going to put fractions in there. 2 over 7 x, and then plus another fraction, control divide, 112 over 7. When I hit enter, it gives me that. Colors the whole thing. I need to figure out what this graph looks like, so I'm zoomed in far too much. So to fix the window, I go to Menu, Window Zoom, Zoom, Fit. This is what the graph should look like. Okay, it should be a solid line increasing, and it should be shaded underneath. Here I have a solid line increasing, and it's shaded underneath. This one is shaded above, so this one's wrong. Your answer is C. All right, this calculator will graph this for you so long as you get Y by itself. It'll tell you what the answer is. So some slight manipulation. Question 50. The value of Y varies inversely. That is a buzzword. This is important right here. Okay, we need to re-emphasize this point. There are two types of variation when they're talking about varies inversely. There's direct variation and there's inverse variation. Okay, direct variation basically means y equals mx, but there is no b for a line. Okay, you multiply the x variable by some number and it gives you y, and that's what direct variation means. So if your question says varies directly, they're talking about this relationship. Okay, this one says varies inversely, so this is what they mean. If I multiply x by y, this will equal some number called m if you want. Okay, so to figure this out, they're telling me actually which function represents the relationship between x and y if y is 48 and x is 3. They give me the values for x and y. All right, so this is an inverse variation right here. It says varies inversely. We're just going to plug in 48 and 3 into x and y. So it's basically 3 times 48 is equal to m. So now I can figure out what m is just by multiplying these together. Okay, 3 times 48, it's 3 times 40 plus 3 times 8. So that's going to be 120 plus 24. M is going to be 144 once I figure that out. You can use a calculator to do that, of course. So what have I found here? I found that M is what? 144. This is the equation I want, though. I know x times y equals m. That means x times y is equal to 144. Now, that should be my answer, but do I have any of these answers that look like that? The answer is no. But one thing I notice is that every answer has y by itself on one side of the equation. I have this y right here. I need to get it by itself. And it's being multiplied by x. It's being multiplied by x. What is the opposite of multiplying? Divide. So if I am multiplying by x and I want to undo that, I'll divide by x, both sides of them. All right? These x's will cross out, and then what I have here is y is equal to 144 over x. That's your answer, and the answer is F. It's 144 over x. That's the solution you're looking for. Okay, but if you did not know what inverse variation means, this is going to be a hard question. So I hope you're watching this video and taking a note of the difference between direct and inverse variation. Number 51. Function k has a parent function. The table shows some ordered pairs that belong to k. Alright, so there's a function called k. Alright, so they basically want to figure out what type of function this is, because these are all parent functions of different types of functions. This is a parent function of a line. Okay, this is the parent function of a quadratic. This is a parent function of what is referred to as a rational function. Rational functions don't often appear in Algebra 1. There's usually an Algebra 2 concept. And this one is an exponential function. Okay. So let's figure out what type of function this is. We have a table, and what should you do with the table? You should use a spreadsheet. I think I've said this before. And put it in the calculator, and then graph the points, okay, and see what it looks like. So let's take a look. I'm going to go create a new document, add a list in spreadsheet, x and y again, x, y, and then plug in the x values. -4, -3, -1, 1, and 2. Okay. -4, -3, -1, 1, 2. 2. Let's do them all. All right. And then we'll copy into the y table. 20, 13, 5, 5, and 8. 20, 13, 5, 5, and 8. Alrighty. So we have this. I do not know what type of function this is, okay? So I can't actually go ahead and assume it's a line or anything else. I'm going to have to go to the next column and hit Menu Statistics. So what I'm going to have to do is actually plot the points. Instead of actually doing a regression of a line or quadratic or anything else, I want to see what the points look like on a scatter plot. I want to see what shape they make. So what I'm going to have to do is graph a scatter plot. How I do that is I hit Control Doc, and then I'll add a graph. All right. And it's expecting me to type in some sort of function, but that's not what I want. So I'm going to go to Menu. Okay, graph entry or graph type, and select scatter plot. All right. This is asking me, what did I call the X column? I called it X. What did I call the Y column? I called it Y. I hit enter, it'll graph the points. Now I only see 2 of them, so let's actually zoom out. Or even zoom fit probably, but I'm going to zoom out actually and take a look at this. Alright. And assuming I didn't type these in wrong, this is what I'm looking at here. Okay, so I actually want to zoom back in a little bit. Zoom back in here. And this is what my points look like. This is obviously not a line. Okay, so your linear parent function would be wrong. However, what this is doing though is something, it's making some sort of shape here that would actually go, if I went up this way with it, and went up this way with it, it actually would make a parabola if I made this U shape through here. So I'm going to say that's a parabola. It's not anything else. It can't be anything else just by looking at the points. All right, so the only thing that would go through all those points, the only graph would be a parabola, so that it would make a shape like this, really. So this would have to be the answer. All right, none of these make any sense because they don't follow any pattern like that. All right, so your answer is B for that one. What is the solution to a system of equations below? All right, system of equations. If they ask you for the solution to a system, you should put a big smile on your face because your calculator will do this for you. Okay, it's a calc problem. This will be menu 3, 2, and an end spot. So let's do menu 3, 2. Plug in these 2 equations and find out what the answer is. So let's create a new document. Don't save. Go to calculator. Menu 3, which is algebra, and then 2, which is solve system. How many equations? 2. The variables are x and y. In these 2 boxes, I'm going to type in the 2 equations just as they're written. 4x minus 7y equals negative 2. 4x minus 7y equals negative 2. The other equation, 12x minus 21y equals negative 42. 12x minus 21y equals negative 42. Then I hit enter. It tells me right away there is no solution found. It just gave me the answer. Okay, it says right here there is no solution. This is true, but it's important to comment on why that is. What this is basically telling you is that these 2 lines have the same slope, okay? Which means this left side of this graph, of this equation, is a scalar multiple of this one. What happens if I multiply this top equation by 3? What is 3 times 4? It's 12. What is 3 times negative 7? It's negative 21. This left side is the same. 3 times negative 2, however, is not what? It's not negative 42. 3 times negative 2 is actually negative 6. So because these 2 values, left side values, would be the same and these 2 would be different, this means these 2 lines have the same slope but different y-intercepts. If they have the same slope, they are parallel. And if they're parallel, they can't cross. A solution is where 2 lines cross. That's the solution right there. But because these two lines will never cross, there is no what? There is no solution. So that's one way of thinking about it. So the answer is J. Number 53. The graphs show the cost of attending a county fair on Thursday and on Saturday and playing X games each day. Alrighty, based on the graphs, which statement is true? Okay, the cost of each game on Thursday is 50 cents less than the cost of each game on Saturday. Alrighty, the cost of one game on Thursday here, it looks to be just under $12. Alright, so I'm going to say maybe it's about $11.50. Okay, the cost for Saturday is just above 10. Alright, somewhere between 10 and 11, so I'm going to say $10.50. Based on looking at this, the cost of playing a game on Thursday will be about $1 more than the cost of playing on Saturday. So when they say Thursday is less, no, Thursday is not 50 cents less. It's actually a whole dollar what? More. Thursday is more expensive than on Saturday, so this answer isn't true. It's not less, it's more. A person would spend $4 more to attend the fair and play 6 games on Saturday than on Thursday. So now they're actually telling you the number of games, okay? So at 6 games on Thursday, you're going to be paying what? About $19. Okay? So $19 for Thursday. And what are you paying for Saturday? At 6 games, you're going to pay about $21. Alright? $21. So the price difference is actually 21 minus 19, which would actually be how much money? That would be $2. Okay? It's actually $2 cheaper to play on Thursday than it is to play on Saturday. The person would spend $4 more on Saturday on Thursday. That's not true. That's actually, in fact, 2 more. So I wouldn't say this is actually correct by looking at the graphs. The cost of each game on Saturday is $2 less than the cost of each game on Thursday. Obviously, that's wrong because we found out on Thursday the cost of one game, if you only play one game, is actually more expensive than on Saturday. And they're saying the cost of each game on Saturday is $2 less. Okay? That isn't true. It's not actually a whole $2. And plus, if I paid for 6 games, and 6 games here, I'm paying more on Saturday than I'm paying on Thursday. So it doesn't make sense to say that each game on Saturday costs $2 less. That's not true. Alright? The last answer, a person would spend $3 more to attend the fair to play 5 games on Thursday than on Saturday. Alright, so now we're looking at 5 games. 5 games will cost me just under 18, maybe about $17.50 if I had to guess on Thursday, right here, $17.50. 5 games on Saturday would cost me somewhere between 20 and 21, so I would say $20.50 if I had to guess. All right. So what that means is that this cost here actually is $3 more than this cost. So we'll say Saturday is $3 more. All right. This answer says a person would pay $3 more to attend the fair and play 5 games on Thursday than on Saturday. That also isn't true. The student council sent its members on 4 field trips during the school year. The number of buses needed to transport the members on each trip is a function of the number of members who went on the trip. Okay, so they're telling you the X values are the buses and the Y values are the... I'm sorry, other way around. The number of buses is a function of the number of members. So this, what they're basically saying is like this particular point means 5 buses for 86 members. This function consists only of the ordered pairs. This, this, and this. What is the domain for this function? That's the magic word right there. This is what? These are X values. Domain is X values. What are Y values called? Y values are called a range. Okay? So they're basically asking you if this is the only ordered pairs we have, the only ones, then the domain is only these x values. What are the x values? 52, 72, 86, 105. 52, 72, 86, 105. Here are the domain values. This is the answer. There's nothing else to it. That's the only domain you have. The answer is H. That looks to be the end of the exam. There were 54 questions on it, so we are done. I hope this was helpful to you. Please take a blank copy of the exam that you can get off the TA website. Watch this video. Take that time. Make sure you look over it, and it will be helpful to you. It should improve your score at least a little bit. And I wish you the best of luck, and thank you for watching.